Next, we'll be inviting a couple of speakers. One that we've already heard from, Sheikha Alia, we invite her to the stage, as well as Sheikha Maryam Amir. She is joining us for the first time on stage. She is also, mashallah, a graduate of Al-Azhar University. Very unique combination, a Taekwondo black belt, and also a Hafidh of the Quran, a speaker on social issues, women's studies, and also a prolific writer for various websites. So we invite her, and everyone now has a mic. We'll be doing a panel session for about 15 to 20 minutes, and inshallah we'll just highlight some of the points the speaker spoke about and a little bit more discussion on what was brought up just recently. Jazakumullah khair. So alhamdulillah, we had a chance to hear from several of our speakers. I'd like to give Sheikha Maryam a little bit of a chance to speak on specifics, and so wanted to invite your take on what you heard, and also maybe just expound a little bit on how we can make ourselves, our families, more meaningful, but also still have enough of ourselves left to engage with society. So just sorry to put you on the spot, but.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum. One of the most important ways that we connect to Allah is through the relationship we see modeled from our parents. So a number of youth, a number is a very small word, youth, many youth, and I'm sure you have much more experience than I do in this, speak with me on how they feel like they can't connect to who Allah is, and they feel almost a sense of trauma when it comes to the message of connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because within their family, sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was used to say things like, if you do that, Allah will be angry. If you do that, then my dua will be against you. What's the point of you praying anyway if you're not going to obey me? And when we hear those messages, and when we see parental figures being authoritarian to the point that we cannot even connect to them, sometimes that gives young people the message that they then cannot go to Allah, cannot connect with Allah. And research has actually found that risky behaviors youth participate in, whether they're relationships that aren't healthy or whether they're addictions, one of the factors for risky behaviors is actually authoritarian or controlling parenting styles. So looking at the points that Sheikha Lubna mentioned and combining that with this concept of your experiences, like Sheikh Omar mentioned, like with being tribal, like your personal experiences are what going to start giving you insight into your relationship with all of Islam or all of any type of Ism. So within your family, how can you be the person who helps your children see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most loving? That whether or not you necessarily can connect or understand what your child is going through, that you're going to be there for them anyway. And you taking time for yourself to sit with yourself and re-examine the struggles that you have with your own faith or your connection with Allah and strengthen that. One amazing series I recommend is the Names of Allah series by one of our colleagues. Her name is Stada Jinan Bastaki. You can find it on virtualmosque.com. Take a name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're very short articles in English. Take one article a week, read it about the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a family and see how His name manifests in your life and bring that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala back to it.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikha Maryam. Sheikh Alias, just wanted to follow up since you joined us more recently on stage here now. Sometimes these isms are not only what society tells us, but these are cultural norms or cultural mores. How do we reconcile between which isms can be adopted in the home and which isms, if they're cultural, if your family's already born into it, should be kind of kept separate from the religion's tradition?
Assalamu alaikum. I think the first thing that a family needs to establish is a strong foundation in the deen. Like Sheikh Imam Omar Sulaiman had mentioned that without that foundation, everything else will kind of become wishy-washy for our children. And I feel like children today, because of the secular society that we lived in, that basically pushes religion out to almost make it seem like a negative thing. It's something that's practiced behind closed doors, like, or in the masjid or in churches. It's not something that's so out in the open and in public. Because of that, I think children kind of are pulling themselves away from Islam because it's seen as something that's abnormal. So before we even talk about isms, I think we need to develop a strong bond between Allah and our connection with Him and our children. Because if we have a connection with our children, no matter what no matter what ism they decide to follow, whether it's activism or trying to fight for rights of equal pay between men and women, they'll always have a strong foundation in the deen, and they'll have that moral compass to guide them to what's right and what's wrong, inshallah.
Thank you for sharing that. Imam Umar, I think we wanted to hear from you about if you've encountered or if Yaqeen Institute has specifically come across any relevant research or information about these isms, and if they've addressed all the different ideological, sometimes conflicting ideas that are out there.
So again, one of the philosophies we have is to never deconstruct without constructing something in its place. So we had an interesting thing. We had the gender collection at Yaqeen. And this has been in work for some time, and the way that we do a collection is we basically try to gather various perspectives on an issue and then put it forward. So the idea of the gender collection was to have one piece that would talk about the how Islam views gender in an enriching sense, right? So you start from that place. Alhamdulillah, we had Sister Fatima Knight wrote a beautiful piece on how Islam envisions gender in an enriching way, right? So how we're enhanced. I think what Shaykh Muslim has said is very beautiful. Starting from the place of fadl, the fadl of the woman, the fadl of the man, and those unique things are actually enriching. It's not just in the domain of huquq, of rights. We've had various papers before, 5 myths on women in Islamic law, gender equity in the advent of Islam. In the 40 Hadith on social justice series, we talked about gender equity and things of that sort and what that means in a marriage and different functions. So we wanted to start with that. Then we said for feminism and masculinity, we're going to do two things. We're going to have one person write about the ideological ways in which those things, those legitimate concepts can go wrong, and then we're going to have someone talk about the Quranic paradigms of masculinity and femininity. And so we had, on feminism, we had Dr. Zahra Khan, who's an accomplished scholar, mashallah, someone I have a lot of admiration for, do a deconstruction of post-secular feminism at the ideological level. And then Ansi Tamra Gray, Doctora Ansi Tamra Gray, she finished her PhD recently, mashallah, did a Quranic femininity construct. And then on masculinity, we had Dr. Jonathan Brown do a paper called The Sunnah Trumps Toxic Masculinity. And oh my God, he got beat up from all directions. Poor guy. He chose the wrong topic, walked him right into that, right? So toxic masculinity and the sunnah and that type of thing. And it was as if Yaqeen had never written on anything else. Like we got more emails on that piece and hatred on all sides than anything else. And then we had Sheikh Yahya Ibrahim do Quranic masculinity. So that was the idea, the basic idea, and this would be the first iteration of the gender collection. And then have a new, inshallah ta'ala, we asked for a different set of papers. The point is that don't deconstruct an ideology without talking about what Islam actually puts in its place or has to offer in its place. And inshallah ta'ala, we're trying to do that with all things, not just feminism or gender.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. So while we're kind of finishing up our thoughts here, just wanted to address something you said. You said the greatest threat to religion is stagnation. So just wanted to have Shaykh Muslim and maybe Ustad Lubna talk about what, in fact, if Islam does need to not be stagnant and evolve, what aspects of Islam can be thought of as changeable, or which areas in Islam can be thought of as a little bit progressive with time?
Inshallah. Such a cutie. Sorry, there's like all moms on stage, so our attention span has now shifted quite a bit. SubhanAllah. So the question was about الثوابت والمتغيرات, right? Like what are the unchanging fixed principles and what are the changing things? What are things that can change according to time and place? So in general, this is something interesting. Actually, it relates to Imam Omar Suleiman's talk when he said, if your basic assumption going into something is what's haram about this, it says more about your worldview than it says about Islam. Because when it comes to mu'amalat, there's a qa'ida fiqhiyya, or there's an asl which we would say, al-aslu fil ashya al-ibaha, that the origin of things is that they are originally permissible, and then it's only impermissible, and this is mu'amalat, this is interpersonal relations. They're only impermissible when they are expressly forbidden. Or they're only impermissible when they have cause to be forbidden because of some kind of harm, or immediate harm that people have decided that exists as a result. So generally speaking, we have a very flexible religion in its nature. It is made to universally withstand all the different trends and all the different times that we live in, because al-aslu fil ashya al-ibaha, that the origin of things is originally permissibility. Not what's haram about this, but that we should look at the world in that lens. Then we're able to identify harms and benefits, and then you have the things that change according to time and place and context. The thawabits, or like the things that do not change, like the universal values of Islam, for example. You would say the aqidah, for example, is something that is fixed. You would say that makarim al-akhlaq, the essential values of our character, is something that is fixed. You would say that in ibadat, actually, worship, the rule is the opposite. And well, there's a difference of opinion, but for some, the origin is impermissibility, except what is expressly said that you should do this. That's for one school. A different school says that the asl, or the origin of worship, is tawaqquf, like you don't go beyond what has been said. And so we do have aspects of our religion which are fixed. What do we believe, right? What do we essentially believe about God, about the pillars of Iman? Those are fixed. And then within Islam, right, the ibadat are going to be fixed, and even those have aspects of it that are changeable, but then where you really find a lot of space for flexibility and new applications is in mu'amalat, in interpersonal relationships. I mean, actually, I'll just say this one story. That's a short story. This morning I woke up to a really strange story that I heard about. And it, basically there's a female teacher, and she gets into an elevator, and there's a male teacher, and then there's some female students. And they're teaching at the same school. It's a different continent, different country. I don't know the names of anyone really involved. But she's in the elevator, and the male teacher says that in Islam, the correct adab for a woman in the elevator with another man is to stand behind him. So he kind of because she's standing at the doorway, and so he wants to get out of the way so she can stand behind him. And this is a woman who wears niqab, like she covers her face. So she was really put off by this a little bit. She didn't know how to respond, and at the time, the only thing she could think of is, oh, but I'm getting off in the next stop, And so one of the things that I think about is, in Islam, like these words, in Islam, the adab in an elevator is to stand behind the man. You just made a single ijtihad the official Islamic position, right, for the whole ummah in every context. And so we have to really be careful when we say things like, but Islam says, I never heard about this Sheikh Islam. Where can I find Sheikh Islam so I can ask Islam what he said? We've always had different madhahib. We've always had different opinions. There's majority opinions, minority opinions. There's things that change with time and place context. And so beware of anyone who speaks in the name of the Islamic adab in an elevator is to stand behind the man. Barakallahu feekum.
Thank you, wonderful points. As we wrap up, last few minutes here, Ustad Lubna, I wanted to hear some more practical tips. I loved how you gave examples of what you can do as a family to withstand all these things around us. But do you have any more personal examples of what we can do together as a family? There's a lot of families here. We want to take away points we can implement at home. Besides praying together, going to the mountains together. Anything else you want to add to that list? I'm trying to keep track and make sure we get our summer vacation plans made, inshallah.
Okay, excellent. Jazakallah khairan. A few other things, I think, especially when you have, even if you have any number of children and there is an age difference, and even without that age difference, sometimes just the interest difference, it is hard to find an activity. You need something more often than taking a walk and taking a hike. What can you do more often? Watch something together on TV, or Netflix, or a movie, and commentate on it. Something, of course, that's halal for all of you to watch, and I always make that statement that, anything that's halal for me to watch is halal for my kids and vice versa. I don't watch anything above them, unless it's something like a documentary. But that's really important, and you will see, I'll give an example. I wanted to write an article about how Ertugrul, the show Ertugrul, saved our family. But like literally, and then I found that somebody already wrote the article. So I said, okay, I'm not gonna write it. But literally, that was one show that we were able to get all the kids, although it's a little bit violent for the younger ones, but they would look away. But it was something that all of us could sit and watch together, and we enjoyed it. We got excited. We started dancing when the music comes on. We talked about it later. We couldn't believe what happened. That really united us during a very, very, very difficult time in our life. I was sick, one of our kids was struggling very badly, and the relationships in our household was struggling deeply. So I say that not lightly at all. Find something like a show or a movie, once a month, once a week, something that you can do. Board games. I'll give you another mullah favorite, is Risk. It's about world domination. Hey, every Muslim family should play that, right? Okay, don't quote me on that. It is a fantastic game. I tried not to play for a long time because I was horrible at it and everyone made fun of me, but finally I learned and I won many times, alhamdulillah, I have to say. But wallahi, board games, and I'm telling you, we have teenagers, alhamdulillah, we have 17 and 18-year-olds. We have younger kids that are under the age of 10. So this can happen. Find something that everybody can play together, literally play together, watch together. It does unite the family, and believe me, if you make it into something, build it and people will come. So buy the game, buy the movie, or rent it, and then people will come, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. I think we're going to stop there, and just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge all our speakers for this session. Let's give them a round of applause, inshallah.